I am the Dark One, the Widower, the Unconsoled, the Prince of Aquitaine at his stricken tower. My sole star is dead, and my constellated lute bears the black sun of melancholy. These are the words of the French poet Gérard de Nerval in his 1854 sonnet El Desdichado, the Disinherited. In the sonnet, Nerval's Black Night manifests as a figure of isolation, melancholy, and despair. Nerval would later make reference to the Black Night in his suicide note, moments before he hanged himself. But the Black Night exists far beyond the parameters of the melancholic outcast. The image of the Black Night has come to represent many things, be it anonymity, duality, or judgment. And as the Scooby Doo Where Are You episode, What a Night for a Night, shows us, the archetype of the Black Night can be extended to paranormal experience, extraterrestrial conspiracy, and imperialist genocide. As we investigate its role in this episode of Scooby Doo, the many faces of the Black Night will reveal themselves to us, unsheathed from their cold metal veil. We start on a lonely road. A truck carries the crated cargo of one Jameson Hyde White. A full moon surveys the desolate road from above. Suddenly, a black night emerges from one of the crates. Jameson Hyde White left at its mercy. Immediately, we are met face to face with the theme of duality, as Professor White falls victim to the Black Night. Given the wider context and gothic influence of Scooby-Doo, the most helpful way to view the imagery here is through the lens of light and dark, rather than strictly the colours black and white. The clue to unlocking the meaning of this is found in Professor White's other name, Hyde, a reference to Robert Louis Stevenson's strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This suggests that the battle between light and dark could be one of the internal soul, much like Jung's shadow self, the repressed self that lurks in the depths beyond the persona. Perhaps there is more to Jameson Hyde White's victimhood at the hands of the Black Knight than at first it seems. When Shaggy and Scooby-Doo accidentally find White's truck, having been out to see Stardog, Ranger of the North Woods, for the second time, they find that the Black Knight has displaced the driver and is sat in the driver's seat. When the gang question where the owner of the armour has gone, Shaggy lets fly his infamous wit.
Maybe he went out for the night, get it?
If only he knew how right he was. The gang find a note on one of the crates in the truck. It reads, "Delivered to Jameson Hyde White, Professor of Archaeology, London, England." Another states, "Delivered to the County Museum." They realise that Professor White must have disappeared. Travelling to the museum that the truck was heading towards, the gang delivers the armour to the curator, Mr. Wickles. He's thankful, but remains concerned for Professor White's whereabouts and safety. And who could blame him, with his knowledge of the legend of the Black Knight? Mr. Wickles explains that when the moon is full, the Black Knight's armour comes to life. He also mentions that Professor White was delivering the armour from England. The moon's role in reanimating the night blows the significance of the monster's imagery wide open. The first thing one's mind is drawn towards is the moon's connection to lycanthropy and the werewolf, the beast within man. This time through a Darwinist lens, whereby the line between the animal and human world loses its definition. Alternatively, the moon's reanimating qualities could call towards the Celtic tradition, where fairies emerge under a full moon as the veil between worlds falls away, and the supernatural and natural begin to converge. Could the moon's presence in the legend of the Black Knight be referring to a genuine supernatural occurrence within the story? In this very first episode, could the legend of the Black Knight really be true? Possibly the most fascinating connection between the Black Knight and the full moon is the Black Knight satellite. The Black Knight satellite conspiracy claims that for 13,000 years, a mysterious extraterrestrial spacecraft is orbiting the Earth in a near-polar orbit. One of the earliest recorded sightings of the Black Knight satellite was in 1899, when Nikola Tesla, in his Colorado Springs lab, discovered unexplained rhythmic radio signals that he believed he was receiving from Mars. Not much to go off initially, but during the 1920s, amateur radio operators started to hear their own signals echoing back several seconds later, suggesting something was repelling them back to them. In 1973, researcher Duncan Lunan analysed these echoes. and claimed they contained a star map indicating an alien probe had been orbiting the moon for 13,000 years. He suggested that the probe may have originated from a planet located in the planetary system of the star Epsilon Boreas. Even more bizarrely, some years later, Loonan openly retracted these comments, despite such a confident stance when he first released his research, raising only further suspicion of this mysterious satellite. Building on this, we also have the pre-Sputnik sightings of 1954, where there were reports that the US Air Force had detected 2 satellites orbiting Earth, 3 years before the first human-made satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched, hard indicators of alien tech circling the Earth. In the year of 1960, the US detected an unidentifiable dark object in polar orbit, and then, in 1998, during the STS-88 mission, NASA released photos of a peculiar black object floating around the Earth, offering the first publicly released visual proof of the Black Knight satellite. All of this begs the question, could Scooby Doo have been referencing the Black Knight satellite in this episode? While initially seeming unlikely and unrelated to the conspiracy, there was one confirmed satellite program called the Black Knight Satellite Launcher Program, which was formed off the back of the Black Knight rocket. Interestingly, however, the group that spearheaded this program was the Ministry of Aviation for the British government. And when we look back at where Professor White is transporting the Black Knight from, it's London, England. Whether this episode is serving as a very early whistleblower for the Black Knight satellite, admittedly before Loonan's research and the photos released in '98, or is referencing it as a motif, can be debated. From every creation to every atrocity, if it's observed by some other being, then does the way we're implicated in these actions change? Does the narrative of human joy and terror have a true context in the presence of alien life? Does human experience diminish if merely serving as recorded data for other beings? Returning to the plot of the episode, Scooby gets distracted from the group and finds some glasses on a Chinese lion statue. When the gang researches these, they discover that archaeologists in England use them for studying artefacts. Mystery Inc. returns to the museum at night, and Shaggy uses his gymnastics to jump in through a high-up window. As Shaggy moves to unlock the door from the inside, the eyes of a Native American statue watch his movements. The inclusion of this image adds a fascinating dimension to the moon's involvement in drawing the Black Knight into animation. For different native traditions, the moon is a physical manifestation of time's movements. For the Ojibwe of the Anishinaabe, the physical shifts in nature are brought on by the moon's changes. And for the Lakota, the moon signals the movement of the natural world within the calendar year. Setting the events of this mystery in a museum strengthens this relationship between the moon as manifest time, as history appears to be folding in on itself with the contents of the museum coming alive, as well as holding the clues to solving the mystery. The mask design itself appears to be influenced by the transformation masks of indigenous people of the northwest coast of North America. These masks blend animal and human features as a single face, bringing together the experiences of being that are often deemed as separate, similar to the lycanthropic motif. Perhaps the essence of nature is not so removed as we like to believe from the veneer of society's order. Within the museum, there are references to many fallen civilizations. When Shaggy first lands in the museum and ends up in a heap of stuff, he emerges wearing a Roman helmet. Later, a secret room is found behind an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus. And within this secret room are a series of paintings, the most prominent of which appears to be alluding to the works of Rembrandt. Rembrandt himself worked under a time of great Dutch expansionism and was obsessed with the Mughal Empire, which had a drawn-out ending as it disintegrated slowly across a 150-year period from its heights. All 5 of the referenced fallen empires, the Romans, Egyptians, Mughals, the British, and Chinese, left thousands of civilians dead and even more enslaved. The irony is blinding in the purposeful placement of these in a museum situated in the US. haunted by a spectre from Britain, and the only artefact that watches on is of a native tribe of American land. But what could be the relevance of these paintings to the wider mystery? Predictably, the Black Knight reappears at this point in the plot and chases the gang through the museum. Ultimately, Fred, Velma and Daphne hide in a tank, and Shaggy and Scooby in a biplane in a World War exhibit. Scooby accidentally operates the plane, and he and Shaggy lose control as the plane flies through the museum. Luckily, they crash into the Black Knight, leaving it dazed enough for the gang to unmask it, revealing the face of Mr. Wickles. Once the sheriff arrives, the gang inform him that Wickles would steal and sell real paintings from the museum and replace them with forgeries that he painted in his secret room. He had created the story of the Black Knight in order to justify the kidnapping of Professor White, who could identify the forgeries. Scooby then finds a shoe on the floor and traces its owner to the native effigy. The gang find Professor White gagged and tied up inside. A pointed pun of White's face, hidden behind the suspended mask, repurposed for something it was never for. A remnant of a culture being actively drowned out. A memorial for something still living. Empires rise and fall and leave destruction and death in their wake. Anything that survives from the fallen is curated and displayed for the fascination of the descendants of the victorious. And narratives are mythologized. A Night for a Night uses the Scooby Doo structure to reveal the masked nature of the oppressive class. The hide behind the Jekyll, the dark shadows cast by the light, and the unseen forces that exist outside of our limited human perception.